everybody. Welcome to another one of our ADJ Stay Connected series videos. For some of you that are just joining us, my name is Corey. I'm one of the product specialists here with ADJ. Today, I'm going to be bringing you one of the latest products that we've developed. I'm sure you've seen many units like this out there, but none like ours, of course. What we have here today is going to be the Pixie Strip and our Pixel driver, our Pixie driver 2000. Currently, what I have in my hand is the Pixie Strip 30. Let me close this laptop out of the way. It's the Pixie Strip 30. The units that we were going to be carrying are a half meter, half meter, meter, and a quarter meter. No, yes. Sorry, a little off on that one. But yeah, so essentially, this is what you're looking at here. It comes with 4 filters. You have your standard clear filter, square and a rounded, as well as a frosted, round, and squared filter. These all come with the unit themselves in the box, whether it's a Pixel 30, 60, or 120, as well as your 12 gauge 4-pin socket cabling. These come in a variety of lengths. Of course, straight out of the box, you'll get a 1.5 foot like you see here. They range from this short cable here to 50 foot. Of course, we're going to get into a little bit on cable length and things of that nature, but touching on to what comes right out of the box for you. Here is the Pixel Driver 2000. It's got the OLED display. You have your different option settings as far as buttons that you can use to go through your up and down to monitor your different pages, as well as your power on and off. On the back side of the unit, you have your PowerCon in, which also has a fuse with this, so in case you were to pop the fuse, you can check it out there. And then on the left-hand side, you have 2 outputs of, again, the 4-pin socket connector. These are what's going to go out to your LED, your Pixel displays that you're going to be having set up. You have 1 output and 2 outputs that are individually ran, so you can have different programs running through this one as well as to this side. As 2 RJ45 connectors, this is both your input and output. So this would be the input for your cabling, whether you're running through your computer or a console. The other one would be a jumper if you're running to multiple units as far as Pixie drivers go. Here, let's see if I can tilt this slightly so you can make it out. There you go, right there. That, of course, is for some of you that are going to be mounting this on truss. You have a safety spot here you can clip a safety cable to. And then on the top of the unit here, you actually have a slot to go ahead and clamp directly or directly connect a clamp to it so that you can then go ahead and truss mount it. The great thing about these is directly out of the box, you'll be able to connect, or should I say directly from your computer to the driver, you'll be able to link a total of 5 units. So of course, each unit, whether you're running Kling-Net or streaming ACN or ArtNet, of course they're going to vary, but Kling-Net, you're looking at 1,000 pixels per port, of course, hence the name 2000, so it's 2,000 pixels in total. If you're going to be running streaming ACN or ArtNet, you're looking at 170 pixels per port. Of course, that's going to, I know a lot of you are looking at like, well, that's going to limit me how many units I can have, but the great thing with this driver is there's a few little updates that we've done to kind of help out those people that are going to be running on consoles for streaming ACN and ArtNet. We'll get a little bit into that down the line. But for now, we're going to kind of stick to what we know as far as the majority of us are running, which is Kling-Net for those in our market right now. But yeah, so this is pretty much your driver here. We have one set up to my left that I'm going to kind of run through the actual settings of and show you guys how it's running the system that we've set up as well. Let's see if I can touch on anything else here. Oh, so of course, your socket here, I'm going to zoom right in for you guys one last time. Kind of forgot to mention. But of course, for some of you that are new to the, there you go. Now we're focused here. For some of you that are new to the Pixie strips or Pixie bar systems in general, this is going to be your both data and power. I know some of you are looking at it like, well, do I need a separate power supply for the unit themselves? Is there units PowerCon themselves? No. So this is actually going to be what's going to be feeding both data and power to the units through these outputs here. So again, you're pretty much all in one here. So the unit itself, Pixie driver is pulling at max 400 watts. So again, that's kind of where we're going to touch on the cable length for the situation. So with this being your power out as well as data, you're kind of limited on the actual distance that you can run from your first driver or from your driver to your first unit. Your max length as far as cable length is going to be 50 feet, no further than 50 feet, because of course you're either going to lose power droppage or signal droppage. It's all in one. As well as in between units, your max your max cable length will be 30 feet. Again, due to the fact that if you're now feeding multiple units after your first unit in line, you're now just passing along the power that this driver is distributing from the first unit down the line. So because of that, you can have a longer cable length than 30 feet between one unit to the next. Again, that's between pixie sticks themselves, or pixie strips themselves, should I say. So on here, we have this unit that's actually on, so I can kind of show you guys a little bit more of the Pixel driver. So the Pixel driver itself has 7 modes. It has a standalone manual mode, which is kind of what we had going a minute ago. We'll show it back to you guys so you guys can kind of see, which is great for some of you installers that are running along and connecting units and connecting lines and want to be able to see, like, hey, before I get too far into this installation, that I do have signal running, I do have a good solid connection from my driver to my units. So there's actually a program setting that's set here that's kind of showing several programs. So it's constantly just pumping out this program as you're running along, running cables and units themselves. So it'll definitely benefit those installers as well as those just running multiple units on a production site or whatever it may be on a stage. You can just have this constant program playing. There's a standard manual mode, which will just kind of pump out. Let me get to that there. So this is your manual control here. Let's see if we can't get a quick portion of it. There you go. So that's the 2 displays. So now under manual mode, you can just get a standard solid output color of white, which just lets you know that, hey, everything that is connected is getting a connection so far and is being fed power. In the case that one of the units was dead or the cable was bad, you would then see, of course, nothing. The unit would just stay black itself. Another mode that you have in here is Kling-Net, like we kind of discussed. You also have streaming ACN, and then you have ArtNet as well. And last and final, you have I think it's a settings option, which kind of lets you to run through the overall settings of the Pixel driver itself, as far as what the brightness of the OLED display is, and a few other things within the breakdown of the unit. So that's kind of that there. So with the display that you guys saw, I did a various number of units on there. I think I have a total of 6 Pixie 30s, 4 Pixie Strip 60s, and 2 Pixie Strip 120s. So we're gonna go ahead and now map those through Kling-Net. So I'm gonna go ahead and set up the Pixie driver so that I can go ahead and put in all the information as far as regarding the Kling-Net and what we're gonna be outputting through which port, how many units, and of course, through what protocol, which I just said, Kling-Net. And then from there, I'm gonna transfer over to the computer and show you guys how I map them out, because as some of you have done in the past with other units that we've had, the driver itself is just gonna register the smallest unit in line that it sees. So for us here, I'm feeding all those units off of one line. So it's gonna pick up everything as a Pixie Strip 30, and it's gonna show multiples of those, I think around 22 of them. And I'm gonna show you guys how you can divide those up and be able to properly map them out on Kling-Net and see how simple it is and easy it is, and not have to worry about running separate lines as far as maybe 2 different lines, so that you can put all of, say, your Pixie Strip 60s on one line, and then you put all your Pixie Strip 30s, if that's what you're working with, all in one line, so you don't have to deal with that. It's still real easy if you have them all on one line together. It's not that complicated to split up. So I'm gonna go ahead and input that information into the Pixie driver now, and then we'll go ahead and pull up my desktop so you guys can kind of take a look at the Kling-Net side of it as far as how I map it out. So I'm just gonna move myself over on here. So you have it says mode button, you have a setup button as well as an up and down. So you wanna cycle through the modes as far as what you're gonna be dealing with, whether you're doing a program, auto program, your Kling-Net, ArtNet, streaming ACN, you wanna be able to select that. So here, as you guys can kind of see, it says Kling-Net there. So now that I've selected Kling-Net, I'm just gonna go ahead and click Setup. And the first thing it tells me is Pixie Strip Setup. If you were to click up or down, you would get nothing. So obviously Kling-Net is only gonna give you that option, which is simply just to input how many bars you have and where it's coming from. So now that I've hit setup again, it's going to read at the top Kling-Net out 1. And then below that, it's going to identify Pixie Strip 30, 60, and 120. So right now it's set to 30. If I click up, it'll go up to Pixie Strip 60. And then again, if I click up again, it'll give me to Pixie Strip 120. So we're going to start with the 30s that I did. So I'm going to go back down to 30. I'm going to click Setup. And once I click Setup, it says 30 and then number. So I'm going to go ahead and input how many I did. Of course, due to TV magic, this is already there. We've kind of preset that up for you guys. And now I'm just going to go ahead and hit mode again. And it's going to take me back out to the main section where I have Pixie Strip 30. So now we're going to go ahead and go up to the 60 so I can input the information as far as how many of those I have. Again, I'm going to hit Setup. And I'm going to go ahead and put in the 4. It's already there for us. Same thing for the 120s. We have 2, so there's 2 there. Now, excuse me. If we were to have ran, say, multiple units as far as we've already overloaded our first port, you can leave it there. As far as overloading the first port and we're going to be using the second port, all you would have to do is just hit up after you've reached Pixie Strip 120. And now at the top of the screen, you'll see the Kling-Net out has now switched to 2. So now you're going to be inputting information for your output 2. So that's one thing to always remember when you're dealing with inputting the information, is to be sure that you're on the correct out. I can't tell you how many times I've done the information into out 1, but I'm physically connected into output 2 on the backside. And for the life of me, I can't figure it out. And of course, it's just simply unplugging it from the back and plugging it into output 1, and you're good to go. Another thing to also remember is if you're only running one specific size, whether it's the 30 or the 60 or the 120, you want to be sure that all the other values in that out are set to 0, because that will conflict with the mapping. It will also register those in the Kling-Net if you have set any Pixie Strip 60s or 120s in the system, but physically do not have any set up in the line, they'll still be registered. So now that we've done that, I'm just going to go ahead and back out with mode. So I'm set to the Kling-Net. And then that's pretty much set there. So now I'm going to go ahead and transfer to the desktop so we can go ahead and bring up Mediamaster. So here's Mediamaster. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with this. This is our go-to software here that we use. It's very simple, very easy for myself to work with, as well as a lot of you out there. So now I'm just going to go ahead and click Edit and go to Kling-Net Mapper. Sorry, let me backstep 2 steps there. Before I did Kling-Net or before I launched Mediamaster and all that, I did connect my system, as far as the computer, to the driver via Cat6 with the dongle here. You typically do not have to change the IP address on the dongle, pardon me, on the dongle, but we have seen in a few cases where some people, whether it's running on a Mac or PC, have run into some issues with signal droppage. The only thing I can recommend is actually identifying or addressing your IP address to either the 10 dot range or the 2 dot range. That works best when running the Kling-Net protocol, or obviously with Streaming Nation, you want to be on the 2 dot range as well. But it truly is a plug and play system. You can take it right out of the box, plug it into the dongle, and you shouldn't have to set any IP addresses. Again, just a few things that I've seen, a couple tips that I've run into myself that I've had some signal droppage, and just the changing of the IP address and setting it to 10 dot range or the 2 dot range worked for me. Woo, tongue twister. All right, so back to the desktop. So here, we don't want to cheat you guys yet. We want to show you guys from the beginning. So we'll go to 1. All right. So pretty much we have a blank surface here. On our left side, we have, of course, our devices. So here you have a nice device name. It's going to be scanning the network, and you have obviously the manufacturer. It just says Archaeos because it is running through Kling-Net protocol. So it's identifying the Kling-Net that the Pixie driver is feeding. Down here under product name, you see the PD2000. Obviously, again, that's the Pixel driver that you're registering. And now you'll see that you have the 30 by 22. Obviously, we don't have 30 of the Pixie Strip 30s connected. We have a various number of units. But as you can see, it's identifying 22 of them. So what that's doing, it's pretty much just splitting our Pixie Strip 60s that are on the line in half, and the Pixie Strip 120s that are in the line into 4, sections of 4, should I say. So what we're gonna do now is select the unit itself, and then go down here to our drop down. So now you see you have 1, 2, 11, and 22. So we want this unit to be divided into 22 different units themselves. Select that. And now you'll see you have, of course, my old mapping as well. Let's see if we can't get rid of that. So you have the 30 units here. Each of them, of course, are going to be a sequential IP address that they're given, of course, through Kling-Net themselves. So a lot of you are looking at this device list and are saying to yourselves, like, how am I supposed to know which is which? None of them are identified. It's ridiculous. What I recommend is obviously just starting one by one. I don't recommend dragging all of them onto your mapping and trying to figure out piece by piece which it is. It's a lot easier to take it like a puzzle piece and grab one section at a time and then identify which one it is itself. So now we'll have one unit on there. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it some output. So on the desktop section here, you have your output section. You have your test patterns, your screen grab, and as well as Mediamaster. So here it's identifying my computer, but we just want to feed it a test pattern so we can identify where on the grid we're at. I'm just going to go ahead and send that. Well, let's try it one more time. Well, let's close this and try again. I think it's because I was closing my previous map. So let's bring this back up. Still want to show you guys the mapping. So, well, we'll just leave it like this for now, and I'll just show you guys. Essentially, when you identify one unit at a time, you select it, you can drag it onto the map, and it's going to show you which section of a light it is. So here you can see that now. There we go, we have our test pattern up. So now, when I select the unit, you'll see it flash green. That lets you know which section of it is. Kind of some signal delay there. Give me a second. Of course, everything was running smoothly up until the point we get on the live. Let's go back to our test pattern. Doesn't want to respond. Okay, there we go. So you guys can see that as I select the units, you'll see it flash green. They'll let you know which section or which driver or Pixie Strip itself you're dealing with. So as you can see here, that's one section of my 120. Here's the other half of the other section of the 120. And now 4 of these 30s will make up that 120 that's down at the bottom. So, like I said, I always do just one at a time. I start at the top, just drag and drop them to the right. Start placing them as you have them physically set up. The good thing about the grid that you have here as well is you can actually change your canvas size to accommodate for your mapping. So here, as you can see, I put in a 175 by 150. In the case you maybe have a wider display or a much taller display, you can always just type in what you need and it'll automatically give you that spacing. Of course, keep in mind, your canvas size is going to correlate to the actual output size as far as what section of your content you're playing the Pixie driver or the Pixie sticks are going to pick up. So for example, here with this large canvas that I have, you can see that this half of the canvas is vacant. So if there is any type of graphic, color, picture, anything in the content that we're displaying, it's not going to show up. It's only going to show this portion of it. So you want to be sure to actually get as close to the physical coordinates of what you have built so that the picture looks better. So here, I mean, if we wanted to, we can be meticulous and actually chop off some more of the top and the bottom. But for us, obviously, we just want to demonstrate the product itself. So we're just going to leave it like that. It's not really too much for anything as far as a live content or anything of that nature. So running it like this will do fine. When you select the units that are there, you have the coordinates down below that you can actually type in manually. So once you get one down, you can obviously select the next unit and just type in your position X, your position Y, and then go ahead and make it a little bit faster for you if it is for yourself there. Another thing to take note, I'm sure, like we, unfortunately I didn't demonstrate, but with the Pixie strips themselves, you have an out and an in on opposite ends of the units. So your out is obviously gonna now, in the way you physically hang the units themselves, if you were to wire all of them together in the same pattern as far as your outputs and all your inputs being on the same, you're gonna get across some long cables to jump from one to the other. So we recommend being able to make it the easiest that you can. So if you have an output, you can go ahead and flip the orientation, physically flip the orientation of the next Pixie stick that you're hanging so that the input is closest to that output. And within the software here itself, like we've done various times before, all you have to do is just select the unit itself that might be in a opposite position than the rest and just hit a horizontal flip. And you can see here now the lights are displayed in a different fashion or a different orientation. So now your content will be displaying accordingly. So as you can see here on the canvas, this half of the right half of the light is showing green. If I were to flip it, it would now display the blue side. So an easy fix to help with installations of the unit so that you don't have to buy all these long cables or worry about having these long distances between your inputs and your outputs. You can just obviously connect them as close together as possible and in the orientation that your output leads to your input so that you can make it easy to run for yourself and then just do all the hard work in the software. So it's less time consuming and of course less of a headache. So obviously you see that we have the mapping done. So what I'm gonna do is kind of now transfer this over to Mediamaster. So I can now hit File. You can save it. I've already saved this, so we won't save it. But you can save it as, you can save this file to your desktop, to a driver. You can send this to somebody who maybe is doing the installation but isn't familiar with the software. You can always program it for them remotely and then provide them the file needed. It's always good as well to save a file of your mapping in the case that the computer crashes, or not the computer crashes, the software crashes, or somebody comes along and changes the settings or any of the mapping that you may have previously done. You already have one stored, you can recall it, much easier than having to go back through and remap everything out again. So once you've done that, you can go ahead and close Kling-Net Mapper, which we'll do here. We'll bring back up Mediamaster. And within Mediamaster, you have your preferences. And under output, you have your Kling-Net. You want to be sure that that is set to active prior to launching the Kling-Net Mapper. You want to be sure that that's active and then launch it. Unfortunately, I already knew that it was active because, again, I've already kind of been running the system for a couple days now. So now that it is set to active, you can actually import that file that you previously saved. So here, we're going to go to Facebook Live. I'm just going to open that file, click OK. It's going to go ahead and restart itself. So now we're going to show how the display interacts with our mapping file now that we've gone ahead and created that. So here is just a visual. So on the top right, you can see here, this is a preview window provided through Mediamaster. So you can see exactly what is being shown. You can actually change it as well. So if you have multiple surfaces or if you just want to show your Kling-Net, select Kling-Net. And this is just going to show you what is being displayed there. You can see just to the left of it, the actual display being shown. So that's kind of where we were saying the canvas size is key to the overall quality of the picture. If our canvas size stayed the way I had it previously, where it was 300 width, and we would have had half that side blank, you wouldn't see this center section of the image in the center of the actual LEDs themselves, or the pixels themselves. So you can kind of see that orange is playing in the center of the two bars meeting, as well as the content. So I'm going to show you a couple more videos that we have set up here. A couple more few different content looks, so you can see. This one here is truly just a black and white visual. What I've done is added this RGB cycle effect. So if we chose to, we could take that off and leave with the, oh, selected the wrong one. And leave it with no effect, and you get a white, just a plain white lighting coming out. But of course, everybody gets bored of white after a while, so you can spruce up that simple video with just changing the RGB cycle. Or I'll show you guys with another visual that I've done. You can actually change the RGB values within itself. So within the actual parameters of the visual in Mediamaster, I've set it to here on our visual 7. So we'll stop this one. So here's this visual, and as you can see here on the actual bank of the visual in Mediamaster, you have the parameters that are set to green, blue, and red values. So I can manually just adjust or take out one portion of the color that I choose. So there I'll take out the red, we'll get some teal. Obviously taking out the green, just gonna give us purely blue. But again, you can take a simple black and white graphic. Maybe you just like the way the pattern displays on the units themselves, but you're not too fond of the color. Mediamaster is gonna allow you to change the actual cycle settings of that outputting. So since it is an RGB LED, a 3-in-1 SMD RGB LED that is on the Pixie driver or the Pixie sticks, you're allowed to go through white, obviously the full array of colors. So allowing us to change out one specific value. So here we can almost get like a highlighter yellow going, highlighter green. So, and now we'll just take it back to the plain black and white. But again, it's capabilities and different effects that allow you to change just a simple visual into something much greater than that, as well as adding effects on top of that. So I'm sure many of you are like, Corey, we've seen this many times. You're always on Mediamaster. This is what you always show us. But again, it's just one of those things that makes it so simple for you to be able to run a live session or a lighting equipment so simple and easily while on the fly. I mean, you're not stuck to just whatever content you've downloaded in there. You're able to just change it up as you please, as the customer pleases, as the club pleases, as the vibe changes, you're able to go along with it. So of course, like I said, we had this small playlist set up. So we're just gonna let this playlist go along for a few seconds just so you guys can kind of get a feel for the actual Pixie sticks themselves and how they work. Another thing that I'm gonna show you guys, I'm sure some of you saw quite the setup on the desk that I had going here. So we have both the computer and the NX2. Can you show the units as well still? So we have an NX2 as well with us here. So I know a lot of you are like, well, obviously that's not going to be pumping Kling-Net out. Some of you are looking at it like, well, obviously you're going to take a look at the streaming ACN and your RNet side of things, but I'm sure many of you are thinking to yourselves, how is he going to do something with the full effect as what he's showing here, or to the extent that we're showing here, as far as because of the limitations that we have, of course, with the universes and overcrowding them with channels due to the fact of each LED being 3 channels, and you're looking at, obviously, you're 30, you're 60, and you're 120, you're obviously going to fill up quite a bit of channels on a universe with just 2 units. You figure your Pixie Strip 60 is only going to allow you to do 2 of them out of 1 port. Again, that's 180 channels with just 1, 360 with 2. So you're kind of maxing out very, very closely, very close with multiple units. So obviously just 2 is what you're going to be with. The third one's going to put you over 512. So because of that, ADJ has taken the initiative and added this lovely update to the Pixie driver for a lot of you out there that are doing streaming ACN and ArtNet, running out of consoles like this lovely NX2 that we have from our emulation company. Well, what they've done with the Pixie driver is they've actually allowed you now to change the LED arrangement that the display is going to recognize. So what that is instead of your unit or your Pixie driver, well, let's just take a look at it. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to stop this and we'll just talk about the streaming ACN, because obviously now that we've discussed that, we've got a couple eyebrows raised regarding that information. So I'm going to close this here. We're going to go back to the actual Pixie driver itself so we can give you guys kind of a hands-on show in here. So like we discussed, depending on what protocol you're running. So now we're going to change from Kling-Net to streaming ACN, because that's what we have set up for this. So go to streaming ACN, click your setup option, and now you have your universe setup and your Pixie Strip setup. So of course, the first thing you want to do is set up your universe so that it's going to communicate with the NX2, so you guys are all on the same page. So you have universe out 1 and you have universe out 2. Of course, each output is going to be given its own universe. For us, on this specific driver, we actually have the Kling-Net set up running out of out 1. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the streaming ACN out of the output 2. So I'm going to leave universe out 1. Actually, I'm going to set that up to universe 4 so that it doesn't conflict with my output 2, which I'm going to have set up to universe 1. So nothing's coming out of output 1, just simply setting it to 4 so that it doesn't conflict with my output 2, which is going to be set to universe 1. So now that we've set up our universes, we're going to go ahead and go back to mode. And now we're going to go to Pixie Strip Setup. Right? So for the smaller display that we have, we actually have 4 of the Pixie Sticks 60. So I'm going to leave the 30 to 0. Actually, kind of did my own mistake there that I've discussed. I'm actually going to go up so that my streaming ACN is out of out 2. I was already inputting the information into output 1, and we would have ran into an issue at that point. So good thing I caught that. So now that we're on streaming ACN 2, streaming ACN out 2, which means output 2, we're going to go ahead and input the information. So I want to be sure that 30 is set to 0, 60 is set to 4, and as you can see, obviously, kind of like we discussed, 4 is not going to allow it to happen. But with this new update that we've installed into the Pixie driver, you can now change the RGB setup. So instead of, I know it's a little hard to read here, maybe we can try to zoom in a little bit so we can see it just a little bit more. Trying to steal the camera, guys. Hold on. So, all right, that's good enough. So here it says a 60 by 1, which obviously is what the unit is typically, or what the unit runs out of standard. But because we're dealing with streaming ACN, we don't want to fill up the whole universe with just 2 units. We want to be able to put more. We're actually now going to change that pixel setup or the pixel layout of what it's going to register it to. So instead of being 60 by 1, we're actually going to change it now to 30 by 2. So what we just did is essentially grouped the LEDs of the Pixie Stick 60 into 2. So now that unit, instead of being seen as a 60, is going to be it's going to read as a Pixie Stick 30. Whew. For some reason, that's got me every time now. And that's simply, again, to benefit you for channels on the universe. You're not going to fill it up with just 2. So now that we've changed this to 30 by 2, I'm going to go back to the amount of units that we're inputting. And now you'll see from 2, we're able to put 4. So what we did there was we just grouped, per se, with the software itself, the LEDs into 2. So instead of being 60 wide, we're looking at 30 by 2. So now in the NX2, what we did was we just patched a generic Pixie Strip or a Pixie Stick 30. And now we've patched in 4 of those because essentially we have 60, or I'm sorry, we have 4 of them and 60. But again, the software recognizes them as 30. And now we patched them in, they're all in the same universe, and we're gonna go ahead and output Xylos for those of you that may be familiar with it. So let me back out to the streaming ACN. And now if you look at the display, this one. Wait a minute. Oh, that might be why. I forgot to disconnect my laptop with. So I had the network connected. Let's try that again. I had the network cable connected from my laptop to the unit still. So I just disconnected that line, and now I'm feeding it from the actual NX2 itself. So I'm just gonna go ahead and double check that the NX2 is seeing the unit. So when I put in content, it'll display on the display itself. So we're there, I see it. Can you put the display real fast? One minute, please. Technical difficulties. So I see my interface. There we go. So you can leave it on the display. So here through the display, 60, let's rephrase that. There are 4 Pixie Stick 60 on one universe, being identified by the NX2 as a Pixie Stick 30, which is allowing us to essentially run 4 of them. If you had more than 4, you'd be able to change that LED layout to further breakdowns. It goes from 60 by 1 to 30 by 2 to 15 by 4, and so on and so forth. It's various of breakdowns that you can go through to assist you in cramming in more units on your universe when you're running through streaming ACN or through ArtNet. I know that's one thing that we've run into with other units in the market that are running of the same as far as pixel mapping goes. You run into that issue right away. It's something that we saw with our sister company with the Elation and the units that they had. We had to run various of lines and run various gigabit switches to multiple drivers to be able to feed multiple units. And with this new update that we've added in there, I mean, that just takes care of it all there. I mean, you can see we're running 4 units. Previously, the pixel driver itself was maxing out at 2. It told itself 2 is the max that you can do. We changed the settings, and we were able to do 4. So again, this is a great new update that we've taken into initiative and added to the Pixie Driver 2000 in hopes that this unit is looked at as far as on a larger scale productions and large scale installs that do involve, whether it's churches and things of that nature that do have consoles that are running other units in the stage or in the actual setups themselves. Being able to patch these into your already existing universes and not have to completely disrupt your whole patching that you have laid out. With this, you should be able to just pop a couple into your universes and add it to your displays that you have going. So at this point, if we have any questions out there, we're more than welcome to open it up to that point. I think I've gotten to, the gist of what we're here to talk about. If not, I'll just continue to ramble on like many of you are used to. But yeah, let's open it up to any questions that you have. Oh, I'm sorry. The last thing that I didn't touch on that I did, but I didn't fully go into was I mentioned that directly from the computer, you're able to run 5 of these interlinked or linked within one another. So obviously 1 plus 4 more is going to give you 5. In the event that you needed more than that, you would just have to input a gigabit switch, network gigabit switch. Obviously, the max on that is going to be a 10 outputs, which will then allow you to do 5 units per output, which is going to give you a max of 50 pixel drivers that you can do out of 1. Of course, you want to be sure that your computer has a gigabit NCI so that it does feed the full system. But yeah, you're not limited to just the 5. You can do up to 50 units, which is, again, with the amount of pixels that you can do, whether it's Kling-Net or streaming ACN, it's just endless, the amount of units you can do together on one line. So I had to just throw that in there because I felt like that was something that's really big with the units themselves. So I think my buddy on the corner here has got a couple of questions that we might have. So mounting. Of course, we want to talk about that. Obviously, they're not just floating on the truss magically like TV Magic does. So we're actually going to play you guys a quick little clip of myself hanging the units so you're aware of how the configuration of the actual mounting works. So here's a quick clip. We're just going to run through it for you guys so you guys can check it out. So here, we're just taking a standard trigger clamp with the wing nut on the bottom end. You can just go ahead and tighten it down. So here you can see that there's obviously a spacing issue, but with these units, you have these 2 knobs on the bottom or just slightly to the left and right of the clamp that'll allow you to loosen them up and slide the clamping section left to right up until the center point, of course, so that you can either widen the mounting point or closen it, or should I say shorten it for your truss, depending on the width of the truss that you're dealing with. Obviously, some of you dealing with larger scale truss on bigger productions are looking at this like, well, obviously I don't have that little small 12-inch truss. We're on something much bigger than that. Can we widen these out? And you can. Obviously, the furthest that you can go is up until you hit the output and input sockets on the actual frame of the unit. The units themselves also have an eye hook mount or into the frame of the unit themselves, so you can actually safety cable each unit independently, so they don't have to be grouped together. And you kind of saw there towards the end of it, towards the end of the video, I was sliding one of the units back left and right to adjust it straight. Here's the obviously just output to input. Here's kind of where you can see, I'm gonna pause it just to kind of discuss a little bit. So here's where you would see this is your output and this is the input. So obviously now physically, this second unit is upside down than the first unit. So that's where we discussed that in Kling-Net, doing that horizontal flip is gonna benefit you without having to now flip this physically to the input is on the same side, so that you have this long cable that jumps across. You don't have to do that. Here we just kind of, for obviously this video setup, we just ran with these short jumpers so that you guys can get an idea of how it works. And that's kind of, yeah, it's me kind of finishing it off there. Don't worry guys, I can do installs on the side, just kidding. But yeah, it's just an amazing setup. I know it took me a whole, I believe 5 minutes or so to do that. And it's still crooked, I know, right? It's still crooked. But we went back and we adjusted it for you guys so you guys can see. And that's kind of what we ended up for you guys here with this display of the 4 bars. So again, you guys saw there that mounting is very simple, very easy. You don't have to worry about like other units where you have the Omega clamps that are just fixated on the base of the unit, and you got to figure out how you're going to get that in between the diagonals of truss or whatever it may be. You have some wiggle room with this unit to be able to slide your trigger clamps or your standard clamps that you may be running with left or right, so that you can compensate for that diagonal or whatever it's running into you on the truss, whether it's another light or cabling, whatever it may be. You have that slight adjustment that you can make there. So any questions that we might have? Of course, good thing my fellow colleague here mentioned, they actually have magnetic ends on them, so they'll butt up to one another for a seamless connection, and not having to figure out, how close can we get them, or how do we know that they're as close as possible. They're a magnetic end, so they'll literally just butt up to one another as you place them on the floor. Yeah, hopefully I didn't run through it too quickly. Hopefully you guys got a good idea of the product that we have and how amazing of the product this is that we're going to be coming out with, or that is out now, that should I say. Hopefully it'll be out to you guys. Hopefully with what's going on, we'll be able to open up a couple spots again and get people out there to see these in a couple venues, and hopefully bring some more enjoyment to everybody's life with what's going on and out there. So I appreciate your time. Thank you guys for joining me. Again, my name is Corey. See you guys on the next one.